Hello, everyone. So I just wanted to do a quick check-in and give you a sense of the general overview of all the project journals that I've read so far. There's a few people that I couldn't get access to your Google Doc, so I requested access through a little email. So check your email. But most of them I did read through, and I shared this Jamboard document that I'll share here as well with just like ongoing sticky notes and ideas about what we can use, what you all found most engaging or most important in all these digital sites, and potentially what we can ask in our final collaboration when we figure out a proposal for our dream project or our real project. I think we can actually do a project. So there are some really interesting through lines, and I just wanted to go through a couple of them here in this short video. So the first one was ease of navigation and a really clear plan in terms of the site and where everything is located. So that doesn't mean that folks didn't like the idea of having it be multimodal or having there be layers or nonlinear approaches to the information, but just as long as there's some sort of clear home you can go back to, some easy drop-down menu that you could navigate. People really appreciated that, which I totally understand because I appreciate that too. It's like kind of the basics in like a well-designed website is that tab or menu or something is there that you can always find it, which makes sense. And then there was a thread about sort of accessibility and making sure the site is able to be accessed by a bunch of people or by a diverse audience, number one. So that sort of fits into that site navigation aspect, but it also fits into one of the main questions that emerged, I think, throughout the project journals was really kind of like deciding who the audience is supposed to be. So who is the site for? And then, because that ends up bringing a whole bunch of other questions. If we want to talk about interactive tools, which I know a lot of you did, a lot of you posed really thoughtful questions about whether or not you need an interactive tool, how much you want people to interact with the historical sources, what kind of site is it supposed to be? Because, you know, you have those kinds of like archival repository sites, then you have sites with more context, you have sites that encourage interaction, some sites that have zero. So we have to sort of decide who our audience is, what they might benefit from, and what we're willing to sort of try to undertake with that, with the interactive element. So there's some really interesting suggestions that emerged. Interactive timeline, which would be pretty easy. We could use a plugin for that. That's free. We could do some sort of, I mean, somebody mentioned something like a word cloud or comments if we're doing a blog post format. Like there are these sort of established methods that we could do. We just have to sort of think through what's the most useful, what's easy to implement, how can we do it? Then there was a thread about the different modes of communication. So a few things to say about this. A lot of you liked audio, and I like audio a lot too. And I think that we see that mostly in the Berkeley Folk Music Festival and the Race and Oral History Project. But having some sort of audio component where you can listen to instead of just reading a text, or a podcast sort of element where you can listen to more feed or context could be really interesting and probably doable. I think pretty doable. I also found that a lot of you liked okay, sorry, I remember now. It was the Patrolling the Past article, and a lot of you had problems finding stuff in those PDFs, which, yeah. So we're also dealing with scanned PDFs. So this is something we have to think about, was how much we want to put into maybe transcribing text so that people can search easily, find keywords. How important is it to put that original PDF up there? Do we have both? You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. That's a question we have to get into. Yeah. So yeah, those are kind of the main things I wanted to mention in this video. And I think that's all. I'm just looking at my Jamboard right now to see if there's anything else that I want to say. There's just really there's also an interesting thread about looking towards the future. Like, is this something that we want to think about as something that a resource that future students are going to utilize. And then a note from us to them, which could be really interesting. Or is it something that we're going to use as a tool for us in the present? Or even since it's about, the resources our student created, is it also about the students from the past? Yeah, so thinking about who our audience is, what the site is for, like what's the mission of the site, and then how we organize it. So just a few things to think about. But I am really excited. All of you did such a good job. It was really cool to read through and see the themes that really began to jump out after I read a few, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a major theme. So yeah, we'll come back to it, and I'm looking forward to reading all your WordPress posts when you're reflecting on the actual student newspapers and getting into that text and seeing what our site will turn into. So have a great long weekend, everybody. Please don't do any work for at least one of the days. That's my request to you. Hope you get to sleep. All right, bye.